Hi everyone, today we'll be discussing the June 2020 paper, but also keep in mind that I'll only be doing the query questions in this paper, and then I'll be doing the report questions in a different video. So let's get started. So if you watched the previous video where I gave you a walkthrough of the format of the Unit 4 paper, it's pretty much the same format in every single paper, so it's the same here. So if you want, please pause the video and read these instructions. And then in the next page, we have our scenario. So this is the whole scenario. You can take a screenshot if you need, because that will be pretty helpful when we go on to the questions, like the last few questions. Okay. So this is the first question. The first part of the first question is just 2 marks, so we're not going to put a lot of time on it. If you want to read the whole question, please do pause the video. So in this case, it's they have given us a database. So this is the table that they have given us, and this is the database. So there is one table already given. So if we go back to the question, it says a trainer record must not be saved without a name being present. So it's a presence check. And you need to take a screen print of the table in design view. Okay. So we'll open the table, we'll go to design view. And they want us to do the presence check on the trainer name. So select that row. Here, in the validation, I did a video on validations. So there are a few ways that you can do presence check. So I'm just going to go for the easiest way, which is, it says required here, but it's a no. So I'm going to change that no to a yes. That's just one method. You can put a validation rule as well. You can do it any way you want. So now the screen print, I'm going to have to take the screen print showing that my trainer name has been selected and the validation. It's not just this one. You should show that your table trainer is open and that this row, this field has been selected. So for that, to make sure that all of this is captured, and this space here is actually useless. There's no information there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize my screen so it fits perfectly. And now I'll take my screenshot and I'll show you guys what it looks like after I paste it on the candidate template. So this is the candidate template that they've given us. So don't remove these texts, just paste it below that. And this is what it looks like. Table name is there, the field is shown, which one has been selected, and the validation is there. Okay. Back to the question. Second question. Set up a list check on fields, a field days available per week. Okay, same table. So since we're still in the same design view. Okay, so this is the table trainer design view. It wanted us to do this one. So days available per week. If you guys remember how I did the list check, this can be a great revision. So was it in the general formatting? No, it was in lookup. So it says display control. It's not a text box. You put a drop down, you select list box, and then you get the other formatting. So in the second row, it says row source type, put the drop down there and select value list. And in the third row, you provide them the values, which is from 1 to 4. So I'll put 1. Do you guys remember what we put in between two values, between 1 and 2? Yes, it's a semicolon. So 1 semicolon, 2 semicolon, 3 semicolon, and 4. There you go. So every time you do a validation, click Control S. So it gives you this message, data integrity rules have been changed. Existing data may not be valid for new rules. This process may take a long time. Do you want the existing data to be tested? You can put no. Okay, again, so when you take the screen print of this, and also keep in mind what sort of view they're asking for in this case. So obviously design view. So minimize the screen and take your screen print. Yeah, that looks good. So we're done with one part of the first question. As I said before, I'm only doing the queries and like simple validations. So part B is a form. I'll leave that for now. Part C is an analysis where you have to type your answers in the candidate template. And part D, it has 11 marks. This is a normalization question where you have to make new tables, create primary keys, foreign keys, relationships, and so on. I'll do that in a different video. Different video as in I'll do a different video on normalization with a different question. But in this case, we cannot proceed the next queries without this. So I'll start this question. So take a few minutes, read this question carefully, and highlight the parts that they want us to do. So here it says produce a screen print that clearly shows the relationship, including table names, primary keys, and foreign keys. So highlight that, and then produce screen prints showing the field names and data types in the tables you have created. So there you go. So roughly, I'm guessing there'll be about 4 screen prints. So let's go back to the database. Close this table. And also, if you read the whole question, you might have noticed that we have to take some data from somewhere else. The skills tracking text file in your examination area. You must create an efficient data structure that minimizes data duplication. Okay. So in this case, we have to take external data. So they have already given us the data that should be shown, which is this. It's a whole lot of data which makes absolutely no sense right now, and it's very hard to refer to. So we'll be putting this data into our database. And let me show you how we do that. So if we go back to our database, and there's this tab called external data. And now there's new data source. And you guys saw it was a notepad file. So it's going to be from file, text file. You click on this and it gives you a template where you can browse your data file. So I browsed my file and it shows me the path of the file. And do not change anything here. They have already selected this. And press OK. So here there are a few things that you need to remember. So there's nothing to change here. So if you can notice in the first row, all the columns, it's kind of a topic for the rest of the data. So click this one, which says first row contains field names. Now you can see it's way more better formatted. Nothing here. Here choose no primary key because you can see the data is duplicated. So it's better if you say no primary key. Next and finish. You don't need this. So now we got our table here. So this is what it should look like. And here you can see there are 1,140 records. And there's a lot of data duplication everywhere. Okay. So if you go back to the question, you must create an efficient data structure that minimizes data duplication, uses correct data types and primary keys, and enforces differential integrity. Right, so now let's start creating the tables. Now, how do you know how many tables you might want to create and what those tables are? So first off, look at the table field names and identify how many IDs are there. So we have skill ID, cyclist ID, trainer ID. So in that case, there will obviously be 3 tables that say skill ID, skill table, cyclist table, and trainer table. And they've already given us the trainer table. So obviously there's going to be skill table and cyclist table. And there should be one more table that connects these information together, which shows the skills which shows the cyclist and the skills that they are doing or have done, right? So there's going to be 2 parent tables. That's going to be the skill table, cyclist table, and the third table, which is a child table that has skills and cyclist. So the easiest way to do this is I'll close this table. I'll right click on skills tracking. So I get this drop down. I'll copy. So when you click copy, everything's going to be copied. And if I right click and paste, it gives me this. Paste options is structure only, structure and data, append data to existing table. I'm only going to select structure only and okay. And also table name. You can change the table name here. So in this case, I thought of first creating the cyclist table and skill table. So it's TBL cyclist. So in that way, we're creating the parent table and then the child table. That makes more sense. Okay. And now if I go to the table cyclist here, the format is there. So which means your fields are there. It's just the data that's not there. So if I go to design view, you can see that everything's short text, right? And also for cyclist table, you do not need all these information. So basically in the cyclist table, we're only focusing on the data about the cyclist. So if you go to the skills tracking table here, I mean, if all the fields that were here are in this table as well, there's no point in us creating this table. So there are a few fields that we should remove first. So if you look at the skills tracking or the data about this system, we can identify the fields that give us information about the cyclist. So skill achieved, no. First name, yes. Skill, no. Surname, yes. Skill ID, no. Cyclist ID, yes. Trainer ID, no. Level achieved, yes. So basically, you need to check the fields that have been repeated. And those are information about the cyclist. Okay. So we'll need first name, surname, and level achieved, and obviously cyclist ID. So In this case, we don't need skill achieved. Cut. First name, yes. Skill, no. Surname, yes. Skill ID, no. Cyclist ID, yes. Trainer ID, no. And level achieved, yes. Okay. Now we know that cyclist ID will obviously be the primary key. So just you can take it up so it looks better. Having the cyclist ID in the first field makes it easy to identify a record. Also, they wanted us to focus on the types of the data. So if you can see cyclist ID, by default, they have given us short text, but if you go down the table, you can see it's always a number. So change your data type to number. So first name, surname, short text, level achieved is also a short text. So level achieved, surname, and first name. They are short text, so don't change that. Now save this. And now let's create the next table, which is the skill table. Copy, paste, structure only, and table skill. Okay. Go there, we go to design view, delete this. Okay, so now if you look at skills tracking, you should be able to identify what will be in the skills table. So obviously it's going to be skill ID and the skill. It's just two fields. Right. And now if you go back to skills tracking, and in skill ID also, it's just a number. So change short text to number. Okay, so we have two tables created now. And now I'm going to create the child table. The child table would be the one that links skills and cyclists. Also remember, I forgot to do one thing. In both the tables, I forgot to put a primary key. And when you create your relationships, that's going to be a big problem. So cyclist ID is primary key in the cyclist table. And in the table skills, skill ID will be the primary key. Like that. Okay. So now we're, as I said before, we are creating the child table that links both child and to parent table, which is cyclist and skill. So again, I'll be copying this. Structure only, table, cyclist, underscore, skill. You can name the table any way you want. Just make sure it makes sense to you. At least cyclist and skills, something like that. So when you see the table name, you understand what it means. Okay. So now I go here, go to design view. Now think about the data that should be linked in this case. There should definitely be cyclist ID, skill ID. And also think about this, because this is the last table we are going to create. Think about the fields that have not been added. So that would be skill achieved. So I'll remove all the other fields. Now also when I said think about the fields that have not been added to the tables, I realized that I haven't put trainer ID to any other table, like apart from its parent table. So where do you think it should go? So if you read the scenario carefully, you'll realize that one trainer can be allocated to many cyclists, but one cyclist can only have one trainer, right? So in that case, since they have already created the table trainer for us, we should go to the table cyclist and add that field. So go to design view and I'll add trainer ID. And according to the table that they've given us, trainer ID is a number. So I'll change this to number as well. Like that. Okay. So Control S, save it and close the table. Getting back to the table that we were talking about. So cyclist ID, that was a number according to our primary key. And skill ID, that was also a number. So if you go to skill achieved here, skill achieved is just ones and zeros. So 1 and 0, as an IT student, you know that 1 and 0 can also be represented as yes and no. So 1 is a yes and 0 is a no, right? So in this case, it would be this and not a number, right? So keep that in mind. Save this. And you've created all your tables, right? So now you'll be creating the relationship. So go to database tools and you have relationships. You can adjust these so you can see all the table names, so on. I prefer to see the whole table name so it doesn't look complicated to me. Okay, so here table trainer, cyclist, skill, and you're also going to add the child table that we created. Okay, so when you place your tables, think about this. Think about the foreign keys, where they have been added and where the primary keys are. Kind of have a rough idea, and then you can place the tables. Because you want to make sure that your relationships look clear. So I'll keep this here. Right. So we have trainer ID here, we have trainer ID here. So I'll link that. And then it also said about referential integrity. So I will enforce it. Make sure that the same field has been selected. And create. Okay. Now we have cyclist ID here. Oh, what I was talking about. Right. I'll show you by example. So if I try to do this, think about the error that could occur. And if I do this, when I click create, do you think it will actually create the relationship? Well, let's see. It does, but at the same time, you will have an error later on. So if I go back to this, what is this error that I'm talking about? So if I go to the design view, there is no primary key, right? So in this case, I thought of putting, so there are already two IDs. So I thought of putting a composite key. So how do you put a composite key? you have to select both the fields and click primary key. There you go. All right, so we've made that change. Save it, and then it will automatically be updated here, right? Okay, and then skill ID, the skill ID, and make sure this is always one-to-many here. All right, this looks good. Now is the time to take your screen prints. I didn't take any screen prints so far so that I won't miss any. So we created three tables and a relationship. Okay, so if I go to the candidate template, and this was question 1D, one screen print that clearly shows the relationships including table, names, field names, and primary keys. So that will be the one that I have opened right now. So if you have opened any tables here, please close them and just show that it's only the relationship. I'll show you guys what the screen print looks like after we take it. So now I'll paste it here. And this is what it looks like. So there are no other tables open. Okay. Screen prints showing the field names and data types in the tables you have created. So they are not asking for the table trainer because that was something they provided us with. So it's only the new tables that you made, which will be your skill table, cyclist table, and cyclist skill table. So I'll open one by one. First, I'll open the two parent tables. And if you go back to the question, so it wants us to show the field names and data types. So it's going to be the design view. So table cyclist, design view, and so in this case, we did not do any validations or formatting. So we do not need to minimize it. We do not need to minimize the screen or anything. Now I'll take my screen print like that, and I'll paste it here. Then I'll take a screen print of the table skill. So when you open the new table, close the previous one, go to design view. Paste it there. And finally, the child table is this. Like, so this is what your candidate template will look like after you've attached all your screen prints. So there are three tables and there's the relationship here. Okay. Next question. Okay, so this is a query here. Import the data from the skills tracking text file into the cycling table. Produce screen prints of your tables showing at least 5 records and the full record count. So let's highlight that. Paste screen prints into appropriate places, resave your template. Okay. So here also we'll be taking 3 screen prints because we have 3 tables that we have created. So if we go back to the database, and this is exactly why I did not take, when we were copying and pasting the skill tracking table, I only took the structure so that now you can append your data. Okay, so how are we going to do it? We are going to use an append query. So you go to create, you go to query design, and here it by default it says select. You should change it to append. So then it gives you this, which shows you append to and table name. When it says append to, it asks about like which table you want to append this data into, right? So here I'm first going to append data into the cyclist table, and that's it. Just click OK. And now to this background, you'll be selecting the table that you will be taking the data from, as in from which table are you going to append data into this table. So skills tracking is the only table that I'm going to be using for that. So if you go to our cyclist, do not take the cyclist table in here because that will give you a lot of errors, and you have to it will be easier to start your database all from the very beginning because it kind of messes up everything. Okay. So if I go to table cyclist, I can see the fields. So first I'll put cyclist ID, then I'll put first name, surname, level achieved, and trainer ID. All right. So it gives you in the first row, it shows you the field names and from which table, the skills tracking table, and it will append to these columns of the cyclist table. All right, so you save it. So when you give your query name, put a query that makes sense, a name that makes sense. So in this case, I'll put question 1E, append cyclist. Right, okay. And just close it. Don't run it yet. We'll first create all the queries needed and then we'll run them together. So when I put append cyclist, I know that this is appending data to the parent table. All right, so let's create the next one. So now recall the things that I did. So what did I first do? I first took skills tracking. I also opened the skills table here. So it's just skill ID and skill. ID, skill. Oh, my bad. First step was to change this to an append query. I'll start it from the beginning. Create query design and append. Table name, table skill, okay. Skills tracking, skill ID and skill. So you must notice that this skill ID means this skill ID in the skills tracking. And then this skill ID shows the skill ID in table skill, not in skills tracking. All right, so Control S between save, question 1E, append skills. Okay. So you save that and you close it. So those are the two parent table queries. Now I'm going to the child table, which was this. So again, create, query design, append. Okay. So it had cyclist ID, skill ID, and this field. All right. So save that. What I mean by Q is question 1E, if you guys are confused. Append cyclist skill. Okay. And then you close that. Right, so now you have created all the queries needed. So now go one by one. So I'll first do the two parent queries, which are append cyclist and append skills. So it'll give you this message. Click yes, yes, and yes. Now it won't show you anything. You have to go to table cyclist and check whether your records are there. So I open the table cyclist and you can see this. First off, check how many records are there. So there's 60 records, which means the duplication has been removed successfully. And now it's time to take your screen print. So in the question, it mentioned there should be at least 5 records shown and the total record count. So we are going to take this whole thing, just like we did for one of the previous questions. We are going to minimize the screen and take the screen print. I would minimize it further. And make sure you take all the fields, including the table name. This is my candidate template, showing at least 5 records and full record count. This is my table cyclist, so it has the table name, all the fields, and the total count here. So I'm done appending all the tables. So this is what the screen prints look like. So table cyclist, that has 60 records. Table skills has 19 records. And table cyclist skill, because it's it's like a one-to-many relationships. It has the initial number of records, which is 1,140. So now I'll show you what it looks like in my database. So this is the table cyclist skill. This is table skill. This is table trainer. Sorry, table trainer was already there. This is table cyclist. Pay attention to the count. Okay. So since we're done with that, now let's move on to the next question. Yeah. So here, this has 6 marks. So it says create a query that uses a parameter to search for a trainer, finds the cyclists that have achieved advanced level with that trainer, displays only the names of the cyclist. So this has two screen prints in the same query, one with the design view and one with the datasheet view. So keep that in mind. And now let's go to the database. Okay, so let's do the same. We'll go to create, query design. So this query will be based on the cyclist table. So I'll take the cyclist table in. And now think about the fields that you need to add to your query. So if you remember the question, they wanted us to only enter the names of the cyclist. So it's first name, surname, like that. And they wanted us to select the cyclist who had achieved advanced level. So if we go back to the question, that have achieved advanced level with that trainer, displays only the names of the cyclists. Okay. Here, we'll put level achieved. So if you go to the cyclist table, level achieved should be advanced. I won't like to take the risk of typing it, so I'll copy this word advanced. In criteria, I'll put this. Don't put anything else. When you click somewhere else, the double quotes will automatically come. If you put the double quotes, like you type the double quotes and inside you put advanced, then it puts its double quotes as well. So there will be like twice of the double, like double the double quotes. And then it will show you an error message. And that has happened to me. So yeah. And also, we are going to get the cyclist of a specific trainer. So we'll also have to put the trainer ID, right? And also keep in mind, they only wanted us to show this name of the cyclist. So untick the show boxes of trainer ID and level achieved. All right. And now, if you read the question, you might have noticed the first bullet point which says uses a parameter to search for a trainer. Now, what is this parameter? We can enter a parameter here in our database under trainer ID. So when in a query, we referred to, in validation, we referred to a table name with the bracket. So I'll put this, and inside I'll put the text that I want to show to the person who's using the database. So basically something like enter parameter or enter trainer ID, something like that. So the purpose of putting this bracket here is to show the user that a value should be entered. So when I do this, you guys might understand. I'll put enter trainer. Oops, sorry, my bad. Trainer IV. Right. So now you put Control S. So this is the first question of the second question. So I'll just put question 2A. Okay. And now if I close this, when I try to open it, it asks me for a specific trainer ID. So if we go to the question, right, it gave us a certain ID. So first they wanted us to screen print the query in design view. making sure all required tables, fields, and criteria can be clearly seen. And then screen print your query in datasheet view using the test data trainer ID 4. So now I'll put, so it asks for a trainer ID. I'll put 4. Now here, it gives me the names of the cyclists who have a trainer whose ID is 4. Right? So before we take that screen print, I'd like to take the screen print of the design view. Just this. So just like we did earlier, this space is kind of useless. It's either you can minimize or you can bring this up here. Like that. So I'll show you guys the candidate template of this, what it looks like. So I'll be pasting it here. So first off, it asks for the design view. Keep that in mind. And that's what it looks like. And now you want the data sheet view. Here I'll paste the data sheet view, and this is what that will look like. Okay, done with the first part of the question. Now let's go back to our paper. So there's 6 marks there. Look at the mark count and always figure out the time that you are allocating. Okay, this is another query. So create a query. You can see the given and would like to know the names of the cyclists who achieved beginner level but did not achieve intermediate level. Okay, let's highlight that part. So that they can invite them to attend the summer course. All right. All right, so in this paper, there are a few more queries to do. So because this video is getting a bit long, I'll stop from here. In the next video, I'll be putting the rest of the queries and the report questions as well. And afterwards, I am planning to work on the analysis questions. So wait for those videos. Thank you for watching this, and you can watch part 2 of this paper, which will have the rest of the queries and reports. Bye-bye.